Good morning, Living Waters. Thank you for having coffee with me this morning. Let's talk about unity, specifically unity in Christ. Now, what does that mean when we say unity in Christ? Well, I turn us to John chapter 15. You may have heard this. In the Gospel of John, it's the only one where Jesus says that he is divine. Yes, believe it or not. Many of their Gospels has proven Jesus is divine, but Jesus never straight up says it. Whereas here in John chapter 15, Jesus says, I am divine and you are the branches. All right, got that one out of the way. But yes, this is a famous passage where Jesus is divine, we are the branches. We are, and the good we do, how we love our neighbor and love God, is inherently connected to God. We're in this with more than just ourselves. This might sound funny, a pastor using a gambling example, right? But if the chips are all in, it's not just your money you're putting in there. God put a lot of investment into all of us. In our baptism, our lives, our calls, the places and people that God's put in our lives. All the blessings God showered upon us, right? We represent more than just ourselves now as Christians. We represent the God that we believe in. We represent our community of faiths. I almost used another passage here, but I thought it'd be better to go right to the source to hear it from Jesus, right? To hear it from God's own mouth. Paul also writes similarly that what your actions, what you do, what you choose to how to behave and do it, they reflect back on all of us. And that's basically what Jesus is saying to the disciples here, right before. This is closer to the end of the Gospel of John, by the way, and closer to the passion narrative. The stakes are getting higher, and Jesus is making clear his expectations for the disciple, but also this is a gift. If you're united together with God and with each other, we can do great things. Jesus says to me, if you abide in me, my words abide in you. Ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. My Father is glorified with this, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so I love you. Abide in my love. We've talked about before that God gives us the power to move mountains, moving those mountains 1 inch at a time. Or, you never know, perhaps God might place the shovel in your hands to start moving those mountains, right? But again, we can do more together than we can by ourselves. So I think, this election season, we already have one presidential debate down, a couple to go, vice presidential debate coming up. People are already voting. How do we make sense of this? A lot of people joke this is pastor's least favorite time of ministering is election times. I don't feel that way because I think that as people of God, who we vote for in the state is not who we're connected with. I mean, we're affected by that, obviously, and you should vote. USA votes, but it is God that's our ultimate alliance, and it is God who we are ultimately plugged into here. We hear it from Jesus, God's self here. I think that we vote, we live, we act together in unity by faith, by how God has called us. And maybe that requires us to have meaningful, perhaps dangerous, maybe some of a little label political, or at least maybe conversations that kind of dip into that realm. I mean, if we're going to be a church and we're unified, but we don't actually engage in anything, we're not doing the second half of the commandment that Jesus says. Yes, we are the vine and the branches, but we are not engaging in the love of God and neighbor in ways that are meaningful. It takes both. We have to be in this together, but we can't be in it together at the sake of a false peace that denies doing what must be done, living out our faith. And see, I think that if we remember that we are united in Christ, that we're together with God, I think we'll find those differences that we are so paralyzed by are not as big as we make them out to be. I think we can find things in ways that are meaningful that help this world. God calls us to be united, and as a united force, to act. You can't have one without the other. So yes, we'll try our best. And sometimes being, like I said yesterday, being united it takes work. It takes understanding and love of each other and neighbor, right? Or should I say that word that Jesus used all the time? Grace? And God asks that as we are united, that we strive to make a difference. So let's engage in those conversations. Let's be that force, put aside some differences for a greater good. Let's work together. For with each other and with God, we can do more than we can by ourselves or by what others would promise in their coalitions. With God, there's tremendous power. Thanks be to God. See you tomorrow.